Hello, welcome back to Our Vision Farm. While my husband is cutting the grass right now, I thought I'd get some garden work done. Our mustard greens have officially just bolted. I keep trying to trim the little flower buds off, but they're just putting out more and more. And the actual mustard green is really spicy at this stage. So what I am going to do today is just chop and drop all of our mustard greens. We do have some more new ones in the garden all the way over there, past the tomatoes. So we'll still have some mustard greens for later this season, but these are about done. And I'm going to chop and drop and leave them right there as is, because I want to use it as mulching and just let it kind of disintegrate and compost into the dirt. I'm thinking that this right side of our garlic, where we were growing our onions and garlic and these mustard greens, we're going to make into our strawberry patch next year. I want to do maybe 3 or 4 rows worth of strawberries. So as we're finishing up with harvesting on this side, we'll just keep chopping and dropping. And this area got very heavily mulched last fall with leaves and grass clippings, so the soil is already a little bit richer than what we started off with. And then just continuing to chop and drop everything, we'll just introduce a whole lot more organic material into the soil. Then we'll re-till it up and just build our little rows again for next year when we do our tomatoes. Not tomatoes, the strawberries. So I want to do that on this side, and then after we plant our strawberries next year, we'll just do the rest of this entire garden in vegetables. This year we didn't even reach all the way to our garden with the vegetables. We got up to where I started using rocks as markers over here. This is where we got, so we actually have 3 more rows that we just don't have any seeds to put in here. I do have maybe like a packet and a half left of radish seeds, and then anything else I may pick up, but I don't think we're really going to start anything major at this point, because before we know it, fall and winter will be here. So we got up to here with the veggies. So next year the first couple rows are going to be dedicated to strawberries, then we'll start veggies over here, and then the remainder of this garden is pretty much our watermelon patch, acorn squash patch, and our newly germinated cantaloupe seeds that we planted just the other day. They have germinated, so let me find one right here. I kind of marked it with a rock. So that is the stage they're at. Hopefully it's not too late and we'll get some cantaloupe from these, because it goes all the way down there. So we have the cantaloupe. This is what our watermelon is looking like, getting very big and spreading out. My husband is collecting more grass clippings so we can mulch around all of these, because the watermelon is going to continue spreading, the acorn squash will spread, and then also the cantaloupe. So it kind of helps with weed control. You can still see some weeds popping out of this grassy area, but we're going to layer it with another layer of grass and then do the rest of this area. So as these plants continue to sprawl out, it'll be a little bit more controlled of weeds, and they'll be growing on top of the dried grass clippings instead of just the soil with all of the weeds growing. So that'll help manage that a little bit. And then the rest of the area would be cantaloupes, since we kind of stopped down there planting seeds, vegetable seeds. So I'm going to chop and drop the mustard greens. Alright, I just finished the last of the mustard greens. I'm leaving my radishes there. They have also went to flower, but I've been using these pretty flowers for our arrangements and for drying. Nice and pink and purple flowers. Mustard greens have yellow flowers, but I don't like them as much as the radish ones. So I'm leaving the radishes that have bolted there. These were actually microgreen radish seeds that I had planted just to see what they would do. Some of them turned into radishes, most of them just bolted before actually forming a radish head. But at least I can still harvest and use those flowers, and maybe even the little seed pods that it throws out. Maybe I can try pickling some of those. I've seen people do that. But for the mustard greens, I just chopped and dropped. I left the roots intact. I just kind of sliced off the mustard greens from the roots and laid them there. And that will smother out any weeds growing, and that should smother out the roots from trying to re-sprout. Eventually that will all just decay and compost into the dirt, into the soil, and then we can also till it as well before we prepare the bed for the strawberries. All right, I'm still pruning, but I've gotten up to probably this point where this long tall post is. I wanted to show you how we're pruning this year, because me and my husband wanted to try something new, and that we've heard on other YouTube videos how you're not supposed to actually prune the new growth. For some reason it's slipping my mind what it's called, but the little new growth in the middle. It's actually a different technique of pruning, where you're pruning the big leaf that is under that new growth, because the new growth is supposed to, I think, produce more tomatoes eventually. Like after certain areas of the plant dies, then that is your new, basically, tomato producing sections. Not sure if it'll even matter here in Maine, because before we know it, our season will be over anyway and the plants aren't cold hardy. But I wanted to show you how we're pruning, because maybe it'll help you guys out. The plants have definitely liked every time we prune this way. I'm just trying to scan the plants and find a good one to show you. So my husband calls them solar panels. So basically you have this leaf here, and you see the new growth right in the middle. So usually they say to pinch those off. Oh, they're called suckers, that's what it was. So they say to pinch those off so that the tomato can concentrate more on growing the actual tomatoes. But what we've read is that you should prune this one off and let that little sucker grow. So I am not sure if there's any truth to that, but we wanted to try it out this year. And so you just go and snip it right off. So you snip that off, and it allows more sunlight to get to the plant, but you're not removing the actual sucker, because that should flower and produce more fruit. So anytime you go around and I like to find the suckers first and see if there's like a big branch off under it, and just trim that off. And that's what I've been doing. The plants have not minded it, and they've only kept growing more and more. So hopefully there is some truth to that, because I definitely haven't experienced any mold or anything, any fungus on these plants. I've been trying to keep them pruned so that they are getting enough airflow and sunlight, especially with all this rain we've been getting. We haven't had any mold or anything. I also try to trim anything that's touching the ground, so any branches or leaves touching the actual dirt, I'm trying to clean the plants up in a way so that it has nothing touching the ground as well. So that's how we're pruning the tomatoes for this year, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if we even get to the point of those suckers producing fruit before the season is over. But thought that was something new, because you definitely hear that you should prune off the suckers. You never hear that you should leave the suckers and prune the leaves that are underneath the suckers, which are called solar panels or something like that, because they soak up all the sunlight, but at the same time they get so big and just provide shade for the plant. So that's what we're doing this year. I'm going to finish doing that all along this row, and then I'll be done with these tomatoes. Alright, all done with the tomatoes. Just tidied everything up, picked up any fallen branches, snipped off as much as I could without doing too much, and that is it for the tomatoes. I definitely saw a lot of green ones. From what I'm noticing, the big tomatoes are coming up first, so that would be like our slicing ones. I don't see any of the little cherry tomatoes, but I'm sure they'll start making an appearance soon. We planted ones that were like a yellow color. I believe they're called honey cherry tomatoes. I have to look back at my notes, but we planted a pretty big variety, so they'll all start popping up. So now I'm just curious. I want to dig up a garlic, so I gotta get my little hand shovel. With garlic, from what I've read and watched on other videos, you don't want to just yank it out of the ground like a carrot, because you risk breaking it, and you want it to come out fully intact with the whole green part. Now later on, after these are dry, I can snip off that green part and use it for mulching as well. It's a really good mulch because it repels bugs. So I might do that, and that's after the garlic is fully dried up though. So for now, we want to harvest the whole entire garlic. I want to find a really big one and start off from there and see what it's looking like. So I'm going to loosen the soil a little bit with the hand shovel and then gently pull it out. So let's start with this one over here. See, this one has a lot of brown. The first two leaves have dried up and browned, but as for the top, it's still pretty green. So I'm just curious to see what it's looking like under there. So I'm just gonna try to dig a little bit. These are Bavarian purple garlic, and I cannot remember how many we planted. I believe we planted about maybe 70 or 90 bulbs. My shovel's actually bending. And we have quite a bit that sprouted. I think we only had a couple empty spots through this whole thing, but almost everything we planted did grow. I don't think I planted as many as 90 bulbs. I think I'm thinking about the tulips, but I'll look in my notes and see. And then at the end, once we harvest all our garlic, we'll be able to see how many we actually got to full size and to full maturity. So I'll try to wiggle this out of place. All right, that is a pretty decent sized garlic head. Our soil is very clay-like right here, so it's a little hard to dig them out. And when you dry these for storage, you want to keep the roots and everything intact. Then later on, you can snip them off and take off this green part. I can feel cloves, so they're not extremely defined. But this is definitely a big garlic head. I'm not noticing much purple color. There's a little hint of purple there. So maybe it's supposed to have a little more purple. So I don't know, what do you guys think? Do you think these are ready to all come out of the ground, or should I wait a little bit longer? Let me know in the comments. Since this is our first time growing garlic, I'm not sure if this is ready. I can feel the cloves for sure. So like this one, I could feel at least like 6, maybe 7 cloves. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna look for some more thick ones like this and yank them out the ground. But let me know in the comments if these are ready to harvest and if I should continue harvesting or maybe give them another week or probably a couple more days after we get all this rain. So let me see if I can find some more to pull out. I think that's all I'm going to pick for today. I feel like some of them are definitely ready. Some of them are a little underdeveloped. This one right here almost looks like the cloves started separating. So I think that's the sign of it being overly ripe. But it does have that little purple hue to it. So I'm going to hang these up to dry and let me know what you think about the rest of them. I'll do a harvest video once we harvest all of these garlic so we can see how many we get all together and take a nice good picture of our full harvest of garlic heads for this first year of growing them. So that is it for garden work for today. I think The rest of the afternoon we're just going to be mulching with grass clippings, so that is not anything fun to catch on video, but that's what I'm going to be doing around those watermelon and cantaloupes and acorn squash plants. And everything else that I wanted to get done in the garden is done for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something new and inspired you to grow your own food.